Shit, when did this happen? All these cords are tangled up. You guys can't see. You guys have already clicked away. What am I joking about? Can you guys tell that I'm really high? So the Midnight Gospel, created by Pendleton Ward and Duncan Trussell, man. You might recognize Pendleton Ward's name from like childhood classics, at least not for me. I was in high school when it was out. Adventure Time, I didn't really get into that much, but I knew it was really trippy, and I was kind of outgrowing Cartoon Network at that point, so I just didn't really watch it. But I had friends who love it, so shouts out to Pendleton Ward, and I can confirm with this that Pendleton Ward is a fucking beast. The Midnight Gospel follows Clancy. His name's Clancy. He follows Clancy, who lives in a society where he can travel between alternate dimensions of Earth with his futuristic audio and video equipment, and he pretty much has a podcast, or as he puts it, a space cast, and he interviews all these walks of life from all these alternate dimensions, and it's a really fucking cool premise. I had no real experience with Pendleton Ward aside from like the 5 minutes or so that I would watch Adventure Time. Going into this pretty much like fresh as fuck. The animation's fucking gorgeous, and it's really sprawling, and it's layered, and it's unique. There are so many unique character designs put on display here, and they're all voiced very uniquely and very incredibly, and it's just it's immaculate. There's one episode where like he enters this universe and he's kind of in charge of what the person he's talking to can look like, and he just says the most like ridiculous, fucked up, crazy shit. He says you're a crazy ass character with this and this, and you have crab legs and forks for fucking ass cheeks, and then they draw it and it looks exactly like he described, and it blows my mind. The sound design to boot is really fucking well done, and one of the big things about the show is that it's kind of a podcast wrapped in an animated show, which is a cool premise. But when you think about a show where the premise is this guy has these really deep, pretty much podcast, and it's like listening to a small podcast wrapped in this really trippy animated show that's also by these comedians, what are we looking to expect here? Are we looking to expect something comedic or something insightful, or is it supposed to be both? It's supposed to be both. Does it blend well? Probably not, but that's not because of the sound design. The sound design, it's just, I don't know how they recorded it. I spent a lot of time thinking about how they may have recorded that audio. They found a way to just make these podcasts seem like it's a natural conversation, while all the while dealing with the things that are happening circumstantially in the present moment. You know what I mean? Like they're having a conversation outside of the animated world while their characters in the animated world are going through some shit. So how easy is it going to be to make these conversations flow naturally? Well, apparently really fucking easy, because Pendleton does it. The audio never felt jarring. The tones definitely clashed, but it never felt like they were adding in things on top of a podcast interview. They may have, and it may have just been done really well, but it was done really fucking well. Presentation is flawless, man, and the cast is pretty much flawless too. Trussell, I've seen Trussell on podcasts. I haven't really seen his stand-up. He's funny on podcasts, and he's fucking great. Him as Clancy is fucking great. It just felt so natural. You could see that this wasn't just some phoned in passion project that he got the chance to do. He worked on it, and it really showed. The rest of the cast is pretty much guest stars, so he has like a different guest on every episode. Frankly, I only knew one of them, and that in the first episode is Dr. Drew Pinsky, who might be one of the least favorite people in America right now because he completely fucked up the coronavirus thing. Drew, I don't have to agree with everything he believes, but I definitely think that he's seeing people hoard toilet paper and he's like, guys, calm down. I didn't agree with what he said, but I also think maybe it got spewed and turned into some twisted Fox Newsy-esque way. He may have just been telling people to stop hoarding fucking baby wipes.
Should not be doing double anal.
Anyways, Pauly Shore fucking shows up in one of the episodes, and he's fucking hilarious. Shore was great in his episode, and we need more Joey Diaz everywhere. We just need Joey Diaz in every movie. Why isn't Joey Diaz doing a cameo in every fucking movie?
I was walking over there. Some dude kept making weird eye contact with me. He wanted to suck dick.
God bless Uncle Coco, man. All in all, I'm just delightfully surprised. Now, of course, that all being said, everything that's being said is extremely insightful, extremely important, I think, in the modern day. But nonetheless, we have this issue where we have a beautifully animated show where Pendleton brings his game, and we have a beautifully drawn out podcast, which is Trussell's wheelhouse. And I don't think they blend as well as we wish they did, or as well as to me, they don't blend that well. It's just some of the comedic moments, they just completely come out of left field, and they come out of left field because they have to. There's no way either of them are going to get off by just advertising the show as a form of comedy. There has to be comedy layered within this show for it to be marketable, for it to be sold to Netflix, because if it's just an animated podcast, they could put that anywhere. I mean, fuck, people animate Joe Rogan's podcast all the time. It's hard to have it feel natural when in the middle of a long drawn out story about a woman accepting death after seeing family member after family member die. It's extremely overwhelming when all of a sudden Trussell's like, I gotta take a shit. And then they do a 3-minute bit about trying to take a shit. And it's right back to talking about accepting death. It doesn't transition well, man. It's just so abrupt. You know, there are a couple episodes. The episode when they're in it's a prison type episode. I think that's episode 5. Episode 6 is great. A lot of those are pretty much the narrative driven episodes. And even in the one when they're in prison, throughout the narrative, there's still this like philosophical debate and lecture going on. That it's just like, it's hard to pay attention to this lecture when there's a really fun, interesting, funny story happening in the background. It's like, how are we supposed to maintain connection of both? And that's when it becomes a real issue. Obviously the tonal clash is a problem, but it becomes a real issue when you can't keep track of the insight that you're trying to provide us because you elected to make a comedic animated adult show that's also a podcast, and you need to have them both happening at the same time. It doesn't work. Or at least it doesn't work that well. Every guest really provides an interesting look into their philosophies. And this isn't like, you know, aside from the Dr. Drew episode, every episode's pretty much about death. Pretty much episode 2 through 8 is just all about death. Some people approach the idea of their mortality differently. And the show explores that. And this isn't, you know, usual stuff. This is people talking about, you know, magic. This is stuff that, like, if you don't sit down and listen to every single bit by bit piece of the insight, you just completely lose track of where you're at. And it's really fucking easy for that to happen. And you want to know why? Because the show's beautiful and there's stuff happening in the fucking background that you get distracted by, man. There are a few episodes where I just completely tune out, and then there's one episode that just makes me cry uncontrollably, and it made me cry uncontrollably. And maybe, yeah, because it's very relatable. It hits home, and it was beautiful to witness the specific episode, and I won't go into too much detail about that, but I became very overwhelmed with emotion, and I found it very enlightening. So I think at the core, we have just a really heartfelt set of lessons being laid forth about a very difficult topic. It's just unfortunate that it's delivered in a very distracting fashion, because these are really big ideas, and it's really beautiful imagery and really funny storytelling, and it just clashes uncontrollably, and it's tough. It's just tough to watch sometimes. You know, there's something about visual hierarchy and why it's so important. But despite all my bitching, this is a really good fucking piece of art. All I'm saying is, man, is you gotta love this show. So at the end of the day, all things considered, a perfect cast and a perfect presentation can make up for kind of jostled tone. Because at the end of the day, I watched every episode with a lot of interest and a lot of enjoyment. So, fuck yeah, man. I'm going to go ahead and give The Midnight Gospel a 9.5 out of 10. Hey. Hi. I think it goes without saying. Thank you for watching, and thank you for sitting through my ramble on The Midnight Gospel. I really enjoyed it, man. I did. I was awfully high for it, but maybe you don't have to be to watch it. Follow us on Twitter, PodQ Productions. I have 5 followers. Please, thank you. And, you know, if you enjoy any second of this and want to keep watching, keep on watching. Yeah, I think I'm done.